Part 8.
What goes on inside? When people say, "I dislike your opinions, but I believe that you should have the chance of expressing them," always beware. Decades of observation, dealing with actual cases, has shown me that such people are, much more often than not, really saying, "I'm going to say that this person has the rights I have stated. I might one day get around to trying to live up to this sentiment. But meanwhile I will use other means to combat his opinions, starting with making myself immune from them." Make a sustained study of reputedly fair-minded people before you accept their objectivity. Study their actions and what they say to others, as well as what they would like to think they say to everyone. Perception and objective truth. Suppose almost no human being could tell hot from cold. People would then not be able to make use of heat or cold. They would be at its mercy. They would find that water sometimes scalded them, sometimes was nice and drinkable. Why this should be and how they could avoid dangerous water and select good water might become a ceaseless search. While they were searching, the behavior of water, and a good many other things, would make no sense, would seem to be motivated by some capricious fate. They would become superstitious about it. They would be attracted to anyone who could tell them something about it, or who seemed able to do so. The fact would be, however, that they lacked an organ of perception, nerves which could signal to them when there was heat and when cold. They would be likely to be in such a permanent state that they would actually conflict with anyone who told them this, though, because it would seem so trite. It would also seem patronizing, and, alternating with their credulity towards teachers of the heat-cold problem, would be a demand to be shown evidences indicating what was going on. Some might say, as we do, that the first necessity is to develop the perceptive organ, and that any argument which was left could come later. But the vicious circle would still be there. Tell me now, demonstrate it now. Again, since the organ of touch involved in distinguishing heat from cold is specific, and cannot easily be described even to someone who has other senses, a lot of time and effort is wasted. People think that they can be told what touch is like. When it comes down to it, they can only experience it. Speech merely provides the aid to training touch. The Exerated Sheikh. In the country of Ault, there lived a cleric of exemplary habits and impeccable conduct. Over a period of many years, he became respected by the people of his city and a favourite of their ruler. He won, by acclaim, the title of the Admired Sheikh. From time to time he used to say to everyone, including his wife and sons, "My example is useless to you, because admiration, not followed by emulation, is hypocrisy of the worst kind. Rather do the opposite of what I do from sheer self-interest, than feel happy because there is someone in existence who is good while you are bad." In the last quarter of his life, he ceased to be a moralist and became a Sufi. Inexplicably, the Sheikh's outward behavior took a strange turn. Money entrusted to him by the king disappeared. Rumors circulated about his morals during his absences from home. He refused his children the gifts which they had become accustomed to extracting easily from him. Instead of admirable, people now called him execrated. When he died, his only remaining loyal disciple opened a letter which the Exerated Sheikh had given him long before, to be kept until his death. The letter said, "Dear friend, know the explanation of my conduct. Those who have imitated my bad example would never in any case have followed a good one. All I did was to exteriorize their delinquencies, in order that they might one day find someone to cure them. The gold, which everyone thinks I stole from the king, is to be found in such and such a place, unspent. Return it to him. In taking it, I taught the king forbearance, bringing his capacity for restraint to the surface where it could be perfected. My wife had learnt patience and generosity through the test applied by my supposed misdemeanours, whose rumours I myself spread from the start. My sons can now support themselves in the world. By denying them what they desired, I caused them to become adaptable and generous, for they do not want to be like me. But the greatest test is now upon you. Being faithful whether you understood me or not, you have perfected only loyalty. Now you have to understand that few things are always what they seem. Hitherto you have taken loyalty as the highest virtue. Now you must learn that it is the very lowest achievement in the ranks of the elect. This is the origin of the founding of the school of the Exerated Sheikh, whose name is a byword of unreliability among many ordinary people, and equally the essence of perfection among those who know. How people's folly protects them from good by itself appearing to be good. Even today there are many who say, "The Execrated Sheikh had not the grace to confess his sins even after his death. He went so far as to leave a letter which sought to justify his reprehensible actions." Such people are describing only themselves. The King Without a Trade. There was once a king who had forgotten the ancient advice of the sages that those who are born into comfort and ease have greater need for proper effort than anyone else. He was a just king, however, and a popular one. Journeying to visit one of his distant possessions, a storm blew up and separated his ship from its escort. The tempest subsided after 7 furious days. The ship sank, and the only survivors of the catastrophe were the king and his small daughter, who had somehow managed to climb upon a raft. After many hours, the raft was washed upon the shore of a country which was completely unknown to the travellers. They were at first taken in by fishermen, who looked after them for a time, then said, "We are only poor people and cannot afford to keep you. Make your way inland, and perhaps you may find some means of earning a livelihood." Thanking the fisherfolk, and sad at heart that he was not able to enlist himself among them, the king started to wander through the land. He and the princess went from village to village, from town to town, seeking food and shelter. They were, of course, no better than beggars, and people treated them as such. Sometimes they had a few scraps of bread, sometimes dry straw in which to sleep. Every time the king tried to improve his condition by asking for employment, people would say, "What work can you do?" And he always found that he was completely unskilled in whatever task he was required to perform, and had to take to the road again. In that entire country there were hardly any opportunities for manual work, since there were plenty of unskilled labourers. As they moved from place to place, the king realized more and more strongly that being a king without a country was a useless state. He reflected more and more often on the proverb in which the ancients have laid down, "That only may be regarded as your property which will survive a shipwreck." After years of this miserable and futureless existence, the pair found themselves, for the first time, at a farm where the owner was looking for someone to tend his sheep. He saw the king and the princess and said, "Are you penniless?" They said that they were. "Do you know how to herd sheep?" asked the farmer. "No," said the king. "At least you are honest," said the farmer, "and so I will give you a chance to earn a living." He sent them out with some sheep, and they soon learned that all they had to do was to protect them against wolves and keep them from straying. The king and the princess were given a cottage, and as the years passed, the king regained some of his dignity, though not his happiness, and the princess blossomed into a young woman of fairy-like beauty. As they only earned enough to keep themselves alive, the two were unable even to plan to return to their own country. It so happened that one day the sultan of that country was out hunting when he saw the maiden and fell in love with her. He sent his representative to ask her father whether he would give her in marriage to the sultan. "Ho, peasant," said the courtier who had been sent to see him. "The sultan, my lord and master, asks for the hand of your daughter in marriage." "What is his skill, and what is his work, and how can he earn a living?" asked the former king. "Dolt! You peasants are all alike," shouted the grandee. "Do you not understand that a king does not need to have work, that his skill is in managing kingdoms, that you have been singled out for an honour such as is ordinarily beyond any possible expectation of commoners?" "All I know," said the Shepherd King, "is that unless your master, sultan or no sultan, can earn his living, he is no husband for my daughter, and I know a thing or two about the value of skills." The courtier went back to his royal master and told him what the stupid peasant had said, adding, "We must not be hard on these people, sire, for they know nothing of the occupations of kings." The sultan, however, when he had recovered from his surprise, said, "I am desperately in love with this shepherd's daughter, and I therefore am prepared to do whatever her father may direct in order to win her." So he left the empire in the hands of a regent, and apprenticed himself to a carpet weaver. After a year or so, he had mastered the art of simple carpet making. Taking some of his own handiwork to the Shepherd King's hut, he presented it to him and said, "I am the sultan of this country, desirous of marrying your daughter if she will have me. Having received your message that you require a future son-in-law to possess useful skills, I have studied weaving, and these are examples of my work." "How long did it take you to make this rug?" asked the Shepherd King. "3 weeks," said the Sultan. "And, when sold, how long could you live on its profit?" asked the Shepherd King. 3 months, answered the Sultan. "You may marry my daughter if she will accept you," said the father. The Sultan was overjoyed, and his happiness was complete when the princess agreed to marry him. "Your father, though he may only be a peasant, is a wise and shrewd man," he told her. "A peasant may be as clever as a sultan," said the princess, "but a king, if he has had the necessary experiences, may be as wise as the shrewdest peasant." The sultan and the princess were duly married, and the king, borrowing some money from his new son-in-law, was able to return to his own country, where he became known for evermore as the benign and sagacious monarch who never tired of encouraging each and every one of his subjects to learn a useful trade. The Wise Man and the Critics. A certain wise man accepted an invitation to visit a town whose citizens professed themselves interested in his teaching. He went there accompanied by a small group of his disciples. The sage gave a short address. Some of the people said, "We do not want a teacher, we want to know how we can find our own way." The sage told a fable. Some of the people said, "We do not want to hear old stories, we want guidance." The teacher spoke again on some subject. Some of the people said, "This is not what we expected to hear." The teacher made a few remarks. Some of the people said, "We do not understand how this speech accords with the authoritative books." As the band made their way from the town, one of the disciples said, "I fear that little impression was made, for those people only wanted to behave in a fixed manner, corresponding with the ideas already in their minds." The teacher said, "Think well whether the purpose of this expedition was to instruct those who do not want to learn, or to demonstrate their abundance to those of you who may be able to learn." The Aim. It is related that the object of Alexander the Great's Eastern expedition was to find the water of eternal life. They tell of the occasion when the great conqueror entered the cave in which the spring of life was gushing. Just as he stooped to swallow a mouthful of that liquid, he heard a strange sound from the roof of the cavern. Alexander looked up to see a crow perched in the gloom. The crow was saying, "Stop! For God's sake, stop!" The king asked him why he should not taste of that miraculous water. "I have suffered much in order to be here today," he said. The crow answered, "Great king, look at me. I, too, sought and found the water of life. As soon as I saw it, I ran to the spring and drank my fill. Now, 1,000 years later, without the sight of even half an eye, with my beak broken and my claws fallen off, not a feather left, all I ask is that which is impossible. I want to die, and I cannot." Conscious that the aim must be formulated in accordance with knowledge and not just desire, Alexander the Great stood up and hastened away.